Hey, welcome to the Camo podcast, episode 4. Realized that I hadn't recorded one of these things in a while, so just trying to put out content. Gotta make up for the difference. Uh, Skittles is not here for this episode. Uh, we're trying to do like an on-off thing, just so that way I am not eating up too much of his time. I am one of your typical co-hosts, Bambi Sandy, and everybody knows that what you're really here for is the terrible shit takes and not the quality of the actual podcast. Uh, as shown by the fact that we are now on episode 4 and still no editing. So, going strong. Going strong. Uh, this episode, we're mainly going to be focusing on some of the experiences that I had and things that I was able to play around with in the experimental branch. By no means have I had any proper experiences, which is a disclaimer in a way to say that I have not played, hundreds of hours on full servers with the experimental version of the game. But for a majority of the things that they're adding, you don't need to be on a full server. You could just host your own little server. If anyone wants to get firsthand experience on is what's coming in the game, uh, when you bought the game, I don't know if this is the case for console. I would assume so, or maybe console just doesn't have access to it. But for PC, if you bought the game, then it automatically adds the experimental branch to your library. It might just be a little hidden. You can download it and then go and host your own game. You go to multiplayer, you go to host. You basically just host your own server from your own computer. You can go through and play with a bunch of stuff. If you go through to do that, recommend that you set the player count to 1, so that way it automatically just gives you the game master, and then you can teleport around and give yourself stuff and all that good jazz. So for the most part, we're going to be talking about that and my experiences with it. Again, just to say a second time, I didn't get experience with absolutely everything. So to kind of fill in some of the holes for those things that I didn't experience in depth, I'll just say what I hope happens and then what I hope doesn't happen. It'll make a lot of sense, I promise. And it's only for really a couple of things. And then a few things in the course of talking about that that I just thought were dumb inclusions. By no means at any point is this podcast going to be sponsored by Bohemia, because there's no point in glazing the stuff that's just dumb. And then we're going to go and following the stereotypical format of the podcast, we'll have our Leaders Corner section, and then a new inclusion, because if I'm posting these things to Reddit and people actually watch them, not that there's any proof that anyone really does, let alone for more than 5 minutes, we'll have a new player section where I talk a little bit about where your mind should be at and what you should be focusing on as a new player. Maybe I'll go through and do chapters, so that way if all you care about is that one tiny little section, you can just skip ahead to that. Fuck me. We don't need to be friends. It's fine. And then we'll end off with our Reddit section. Actually got some really good Reddit topics that kind of let me springboard into issues that I've seen with the game and people and stuff like that. It's just funny because episode 2, which is like the last episode that was posted to Reddit. Not that I make these explicitly for Reddit, but me and Skittles didn't have really any topics any good topics, I should say, for the Reddit section. So this is going to be a great contrast. So let's jump into it. I do not know, just to hedge off comments. I don't know when the update's going to drop. Don't know. Don't ask me. I don't know. I don't have any inside knowledge. I don't talk to any other content creators for the game. Probably disliked by every other content creator for the game because they're all fucking just nope. Nope, not gonna say it. I was gonna say singularly minded because I'm pretty sure that I'm the only person that's talking about the game from like a competitive perspective or like a casual player perspective that isn't in like 3 milsim units and isn't trying to like hit a formation when I hit the corner of a building or stack up. But I don't actually know that, so I'm not gonna talk shit about people that I don't even. I don't know. Uh, there was some stuff that thought was pretty cool, and there was some stuff that I was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And then I would like to think I'll tone down a little bit of the shit talking in this. At the end of the day, you can't shit talk too much. You still play the game. I still play like 6 hours a day, right? So whatever. And they could add a bunch of stuff that I'm not really a fan of or that I don't agree with. Like I'll mention something more or less right off the bat that I just think is dumb. If they add it to the game, cool. I'm just not going to interact with it. Whatever. And it's still infinitely better than Squad right now. So, whatever. See, at least once an episode, I have to anger the Squad quote unquote community. The community that hates itself to a large extent. But whatever. So first thing that I noticed, funny enough, with experimental, was when I hosted my own server for whatever reason, I spawned in and it was nighttime. So I got to see the darkness, like film grain effect. I don't know what causes this. I don't know how it comes about or what they did to add it or change it, or even if it's a good alternative for the darkness that's in the ordinary game right now. Don't know. I like it because I would like to think to an extent that it is a deterrent against gamma brightening, just pumping up your gamma on your monitor. Because it makes it inherently harder to see in darkness. And when you see something that's very bright, one of my guys showed me a cool screenshot from a moment that he had in an experimental match. I think he said it was like 40 people on the server. He was on Chotane. Yeah, everything was super pitch black. He was creeping through that like bush alley in between that like tan 2-story and the convenience store. And someone threw a grenade into the back door, I think he was saying, of the convenience store, and like the fireball effect from the grenade exploding perfectly illuminated a guy that was standing in the doorway that he didn't see before, so he just shot the guy. But he said that didn't have, and you could see it in the screenshot that he had posted, that the film grain effect didn't like overlay over the light for that. So arguably that's a great pro if you're in a house for using a flashlight, because you're walking around in the house. People are gonna, it's not like you're gonna give away your position more than your footsteps are. And if it eliminates that film grain effect, then that's fantastic. Big fan of that. Because as it stands, flashlights are just a role-playing aesthetic in the game. If you're using flashlights, new player tip, if you're using flashlights in a game of Conflict, don't do that. If you can't see and it's an issue for you, maybe just stick to roads or do defense for nighttime chunks of time. Don't use flashlights because you're letting someone 3 miles away know that if they shoot that flashlight, there's a 50-50 chance they kill an enemy. People are okay with those odds. Don't you know? Second thing that I noticed, because I am a flare whore, phrasing, the handheld flares. Now, I hate this. I hate it. I love the idea and the concept of handheld flares. Like you could have like a starting pistol or whatever, but arguably I think like what they included, sure, whatever. I'm not a historian. I've never used like a signal flare before. So I don't know. I agree with the concept, I guess. The handheld flares, it's like a little I'm sure in reality, it's like a little PVC tube. You pull like a striker, like a cord on the bottom, and it shoots a flare up into the air. However, my issues with this more stem from what we've been asking for and not what the product is, right? If you intend it to be a signal flare and its real only use is to just send light based signals, okay. It, I, is this a roleplay tool? Is this for like milsim units? If just to add context to people that don't know at all, the signal flare, you cannot aim it. And I don't mean that there's no cursor. I mean you can't aim it. There is a fan. I mean left and right. You know, it just shoots effectively in the center of your screen. So I guess that's a lie. But vertically, you've got everywhere. If you want to visualize this in your mind, you've got roughly 60 degrees is as low as you can aim it, and say 80 degrees is about as high as you can aim it. And it's the exact same distance or fuse, however you want to think about that, as the ordinary GL. So you can't fire them close. You can't fire them straight up into the air. And you can't fire them at or into tree lines and towns and stuff. Why is this an issue? Because we weren't asking for signal flares, Bohemia. At no point was anybody on Reddit, any of the masses that play the game, if you, not that I think that this has ever happened, if a developer hopped into a match and it was nighttime on Conflict, they would never hear anyone say, you know what would really be great right now? A signal flare. Not only that, a signal flare that can only be used for signals. That would be fantastic. That's really what would make the difference right now. That is not what anyone has said. I would be willing to bet ever on a match of Conflict. Conflict is your main game mode. If you have added signal flares just as like a nod to, you know, say milsim communities or very small servers, people with friends, okay, cool. Can you now add the thing in addition that we've all been asking for? That would be fantastic. A short range way to illuminate an area would be fantastic. That'd be great. Personally, I would like if I could both aim the thing and adjust the distance, maybe, at which it pops, right? And if that means that there are actually two classes of flares for realism purposes, because there's no way that you could have a handheld, fused, or timed, I guess you could say, flare that you can adjust the distance that it goes off at. Maybe that's just solved by having, if it really is just like Roman candles that are just in tubes, right? Maybe you just have two different sized tubes. One's long for really far flare dispersion, however you want to say that, shooting. And then you have a really short one that shoots and pops like 20 feet away, right? Think of like Simon's Wood. I want a flare. I want a handheld flare that if I'm standing on like the command tent on one side of the tree line, I can get it to pop either over or just inside the other tree line. That would be fantastic. I would be very, very happy. And that distance, I don't know what the fuck that is. Maybe it's like 150 or something like that. Probably not even, maybe 100. I find myself wishing for that ability, for that thing at that distance, at least 7 times a game. Even when it's not proper nighttime and I really don't need to be using flares, I still want to do that because it's a great way to see through bushes and into tree lines and like really dense pockets and stuff. Like Chotain from that little sniper mound on the northwest side into like the convenience store. That's roughly that distance. Or from the command tent at Chotain to like the edge of town on the east side where people can kind of naturally come in from if they're coming from coastal Chotain. That would be that again, same kind of distance. Entradour, right? Anyway, I don't have to give 17 examples, but you see that kind of distance reflected on a lot of engagements in a lot of places. So I that would be fantastic. And then I don't care if you add the signal flare. That's cool, whatever. But if this was meant to be an answer to that, you fucking failed just terribly. Um, so yeah, yep. Anyways, that's my little mini soapbox on flares done. Uh, I mean, seriously, like something that you could or make that thing something that pops even if it hits a solid object. And then my way of getting short range flares is I just aim it at a tree that's at that tree line, right? And then once it gets out there, it burns. Because then you could shoot it into windows and stuff like that and houses. That'd be so goddamn cool. Come on. Uh, but anyways, that one of my shorter topics for this thing. Uh, so that was a disappointment. The third thing that I noticed, just as a funny aside, I only went into experimental to see what the commander changes were, and I spent like so I had allocated maybe 20 minutes. It was ahead of making another recording. I was like, I'll see what this is like in the context of competitive and playing against other teams and stuff. See if this like has an effect in matches where there's no AI and it's globally turned off and you're just dealing with players. And I spent 2 hours messing around with this other stuff and seeing like, okay, this works in this context, but this doesn't work in this context. So the third thing that I noticed was the loadout options, obviously. Arguably, this should be the first thing that you notice, but I was just tired or something. When you go to spawn in, on the right-hand side, lower right-hand side, you've got a picture of your guy. This is in reference to like your public matches right now, and it tells you your loadout cost, and it shows what your guy looks like. And then there's a little symbol underneath the guy if you have a custom loadout, where it gives you the option to choose either a default loadout or your custom loadout. The loadout options that are in the game now, they're context specific. I'll touch on that later, but it depends on what type of squad that you're in. But you can just spawn in with effectively default kits for rifleman, grenadier, a light machine gunner. I don't think there's a heavy machine gunner option, but maybe I just didn't join that squad that has that. And medic and sniper. So, pretending like I'm the center of the universe, you're hearing it here first. You can, with 0 minutes on a server, you just, 5-person queue, 40-person queue, you pop in, you can immediately play as a sniper with an M14 and a badass scope, and I would assume that the same is true of the Soviet side with the SVD. I agree with this to an extent. I think that it's ridiculous in the ordinary game right now that you have to force people to play with roles and kits that they might not want to play with, so that way they can grind through the rank to play with the thing that they actually want to play with. And this is absurd from the perspective that the average player only has maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours to play with. The idea that you would spend a lot of your time just not being able to do the thing that you want to do. Let's say I'm really good with the M16 and the saw and the ordinary weapons, and I just want to get better. This is a real example. I suck at leading my shots even with tracer rounds, with a lot of weapons. So if I want to just try and get better with that with the M14, shut out of luck. Just can't do it. So I agree with opening that up and giving people the opportunity to play with what they want to play earlier, I would say. However, wasn't a large component of the rank restrictions that you didn't want people to just spawn in with some of the most overpowered weapons in the game, right? The M14 is a 2-hit killer. Doesn't matter what you hit. Now, I get it, and someone's going to be like, well, I shot at a guy from Montanak to Provence, and he took like 5 bullets. The game has like velocity drop off. I'm talking about if you walk into Provence and you see a bunch of Soviets and you have an M14 and no scope. If you have tracer rounds, you can kill an entire group of Soviets without ever aiming down sight. The thing is a monster. It is a 20 round monster. So I thought that a component of the rank restrictions was to prevent people from just spawning in with these god tier weapons. Even the Soviet or the SVD to an extent, right? 10 rounds of just you definitely killed that guy. Like he is not unconscious. He's gone. Um, I thought that was a piece of it. The other piece being the supply, trying to extend how long supplies last on an objective. I'll come in with a spicy take here in a minute on that. But what what are we doing? What are we doing? Now, an easy way to do this, I've held this opinion for a minute now. Uh, Even if it's not lore friendly or fantastic, uh, why don't you just have alternate versions of the weapons? So at the beginning of a match, when you go to choose your role, you can choose as a machine gunner and a rifleman and as a grenadier and as a sniper. But if you choose sniper, it sets you with like a bolt action gun. That's fantastic, but it's got a slow reload, right? So you can't just big dig it into the objective and hip fire everybody. Maybe why doesn't the M14 have like a shittier scope that's like really restrictive and fixed and doesn't have zoom, right? And the trade-off with that is, well, you can choose the sniper kit, but this isn't actually a sniper kit. It's a DMR. You're consistent at mid ranges and you're more accurate. So when you push up to Province from the little tree line clearing that's on the west side, you push through it when you're coming from Fergari. You can get, because most of the time when you push into an objective, you're going to be overmanned, so it's not going to hit the enemy with hey, the enemy's taking this base notification. So you have like a couple of minutes of grace period to like figure out how you're going to set things off, right? Maybe it's a kit that shines phenomenally with that kind of mid-range, short-range scope to crack off a couple of good headshots, and then hip fire people from there. I with what I'm fine with the loadouts. With what the loadouts are, I don't know, man. I don't know about that. And also the fact that they're default loadouts, so you no longer really need an arsenal at an objective. Right? The Not that anyone else has ever been on the same page with me about the saw just being the most overpowered fucking gun of the game, but if you're giving people the opportunity or the ability to just spawn somewhere and there doesn't even need to be an arsenal bunker there, what? I don't agree with that. I don't, because a big piece of the chess that goes into one manning and two manning an objective, which is what we all fucking do for the most part, right? Very few groups and sets of people, even if you have 30 people in the Discord, people tend to only play. Yeah, everyone's working, everyone's doing different hours, stuff like that. Your friend's doing some real life thing or something like that. We all play in onesies and twosies, rarely in trios, right? And if you play, I'd be willing to bet I might be hitting this right on the nail with the hammer. That's not how that saying goes, but if you play with more than three people, I'd be willing to bet that not all of those people want to be standing next to each other at the same time, right? Like one guy's off flying a helicopter and he just happens to be in the Discord channel with you. Another guy's doing logistics, and then you've got one or two guys that want to do infantry, right? A big piece of the decision making and the fun, the satisfaction, the tactic of taking an objective when you don't have an entire team, which, shout out to that not happening outside of the beginning of the game, is do I dig down the antenna tower and risk not being able to build another one? It takes forever to take an objective. If I dig down the antenna tower, that gives me consistency in the meantime, right? I might push in with 2 guys total, and they'll come in with 3 guys. That means that because Jesus, I guess I got to throw this into. I got to caveat everything that I say because people might have not seen the past episodes. Base capture mechanics, right? Equal numbers plus one. So if I go into a base with 3 people total and the Russians have 4 people there, people can spawn in while we're there, right? Contesting the base. If I kill 2 of the Russians, though, then we start contesting the base and the Soviets can't spawn there. But if then 2 Soviet guys that had, say, run off the objective to go run to Cav Hill or something like that, see that the base is being taken and they turn back, the base is no longer contested and Soviets can spawn there. There's no, hey, there's an enemy nearby restriction on spawning on objectives, which I actually kind of agree with to an extent. So some of the decision making that goes into pushing into an objective, for instance, is do I dig down the antenna tower so that way enemies can't spawn here while I'm here, and then I have a more consistent fight while I'm here contesting. Sometimes the antenna tower is on the edge of the radius, so you can't dig it down. So sometimes that's not an option. But the downside of digging down the antenna tower is you can't build things when the enemy is nearby. So you are making an investment that might not actually pay off. Soviets, or whoever you're playing against, I just always play as US, so the default in my mind is Soviets. Soviets might not actually push over to Figari from Provence or Montauk or whatever until you've already taken the base. So you're setting yourself at a disadvantage because now the flip side is that it's your base, but no one can spawn there to help you out because there are enemies nearby, so you can't build the tower, if that makes sense. Same thing, arguably, with the arsenal bunkers, right? By the way, shout out. Maybe I'm going to ruin the meta, I guess, but I don't know. Everybody should be thinking about the game like this. So I'll throw people a bone. Everybody knows that if you put the antenna tower, if you build that on the outskirts of the build radius, then people can't solo cap as easy because you have to be on the offense radius to be able to dig things down, but the radio tower will be outside of the offense radius, so you'll never be able to actually interact with that radio tower to dig it down and take the base at the same time, right? It's like a math problem or a check issue. Checksum issue anyways. I don't actually know what a checksum is, but don't worry. Where do people put arsenal bunkers? Right in the middle of the objective. And past the very beginning of the game, most people aren't spawning with default loadouts. So sometimes you can actually invest in just digging down the arsenal bunker on an objective that already has a bunch of supplies, so you're just going to rebuild it, and gamble that the people that will be willing to respond to that objective being taken aren't going to want to part with their custom loadouts, right? The PKM with the tracer rounds or the SVD and stuff like that. And it gives you an alternate option to kind of do a little bit of something if you're doing small team offense. If you can just spawn in with the best light machine gun in the game and there doesn't need to be an arsenal bunker there, that kind of spoils a little bit of that depth, right? I don't even think that depth is there on purpose, but you definitely, that's a happy accident. You shouldn't be trying to, like, change that or do anything about that. So that's kind of an issue that I had seen with the loadouts in general. The last note that I would make on that is I think that someone on the team kind of thought about it. They increased as default the suicide, both spawn time punishment, and which is really just a timer, and the rank loss for it. And I think that they did that to compensate for this. The roles, the default roles that you can choose, give you equipment that you would still need rank to grab from the arsenal. So if you choose the sniper role as the US, it gives you an M14 and a great scope, but you can't pull those things from the arsenal. So there's, left side of the brain says, well, if I'm rolling with 3, 4 guys, or I'm on an objective where I'll just spawn in over and over and over again and kill myself over and over and over again with these really OP items and weapons. Well, you're going to lose basically all of your rank experience for that as a punishment. And, you know, if you really want to play with the M14, like, you only need to be a corporal to grab it. And for as kind of memey and consistent as that sniper sort of role is, everyone wants to play with the sniper rifle. I don't actually ever see anyone really like cutting their teeth on playing it. You'll maybe have like 1 or 2 guys a match that just snipe. For the most part, people just grab the sniper rifle because they can as an auxiliary to like a belt-fed gun or something like that. So they can do really well with people close range, and then they can reach out to people at long range. Something that, in saying that, hasn't been addressed is if I'm playing with 5 guys and I don't need rank to do any of the roles or the default loadouts, why would I care about rank loss? Unless the server kicks me once I'm, what's the, like, below private? It's like vilified or something like that, or something. Why would that be a disincentive? Like, if I'm only on for an hour and a half or 2 hours and I'm playing with another guy, I can eat the one suicide, cost of, hey, now we both get to play as snipers. So, and then I'll touch on some of the other loadout things that have to do with more squad composition and role selection here in a second. But you should probably try to account for that, I would think, because that's going to be really, really common. And to kind of close out that topic, set it so that in general, I think that there should be sort of base things that you can play with, and then upgrades. Arguably, the upgrade to the saw is the M60, except that it really isn't. There should be like a really garbage. The Russians kind of have it, right? Like the upgrade to all of the weapons are the rail capable versions of those weapons, and those weapons have a higher supply cost. Why doesn't the US have that, and why couldn't you just expand on that with the actual roles, right? Like maybe as default roles, it will only ever give you the basic garbage versions of that class, and then if you want the upgrade, you have to go to the arsenal. So if I'm a Russian and I'm not interested in using the Mosin, or I'm not really, it's not my cup of tea, I don't want to use a bolt action, then I do have to grind for the rank to get the SVD. There's little tweaks to do there. Do I think that they're going to do them? Absolutely not. Look at some of the things that are in the base game, right? That same sort of like logic proposal there, and that didn't really work out either, did it? So squad composition and role selection. So you can't just play as every default role from any squad. I wish that I wasn't a basic bitch and I could do overlays. Technically, I could by just dragging a screenshot over this picture for the background, but that looks terrible. So I'm not going to do that. Also, I don't have a good screenshot because I didn't plan ahead. There are, when you start the match, okay, so right now, you can just make a squad. There's no theme to the squad. The squad doesn't give you anything. It's effectively just, it allocates a frequency for you, and there are a max number of squads in vanilla anyways that you can play. You'll notice at the beginning of the game that they fill up immediately, and then you can't make a squad because the squads have to be linked to a frequency. I don't agree with that, but also there's more than 20 hypothetical frequencies. But In experimental, there are 6 starting squads, and each squad represents a different squad type. So there is an assault squad, there's a medic squad, I think, there's a lat squad, there's a recon squad, and I can't remember what the other one is. Maybe logistics and helicopters is the default. To request additional squads, you have to ask the commander, which I think is a yes/no prompt, or that just opens up. I don't. This is one of the things that I wasn't able to experience because I was on a server by myself. But each themed squad has a maximum number of players. So the assault squad gives you riflemen and lat and not lat, sorry, my bad. Rifleman, machine gunner, grenadier, medic, and sniper. The recon team, I think, just has a radio man and a sniper. Oh, the assault squad has a radio man too. The lat squad I saw is law for US, so a lat guy, a lat anti-tank guy, and then a radio guy. I'll kind of be annoyed and expressed my annoyance with that idea later. And then I didn't check out the other squads because I don't know. I noticed it. I thought, oh, okay, that's cool. I played around with it enough to see that each squad offers different roles, or has allocations for different roles, and then that's basically all I could test out. Oh, one of the defaults is a sapper squad. So you get 5 sticks of C4 and a clacker. No mines, which I'm a fan of. That's fine. So the squad that you slot into is going to have different role allocations. So, like, the sapper wasn't an option in the assault squad, but it was an option, or the combat engineer, I should say, was an option in the sapper squad. You can't choose a default kit that has a lat from the assault squad. Don't really know how that makes sense, but I like, because this is just default roles, right? I would have more of an issue with this restriction if you couldn't go into the arsenal and grab what you wanted still. I'll touch on that here next, but because you can, it's just dumb looking. Like, who are you to tell me what my squad should consist of? Fucking developer in another country? Like, shouldn't that be my job? Isn't that my decision? And then two, kind of the flip side of the coin is, because you can just go to the arsenal bunker and like swap stuff in and out. Why can't there be a lat in an assault squad? And then I'll touch off with this just because I don't want to go spend too much time bitching and complaining about this one specific thing, but the lat squad is only a 2-man squad. It's the lat and a rifleman, or a radio guy. So the insinuation is that you're using it to ambush more, right? The radio guy gives you a spawn that you wouldn't have ordinarily. And then the lat, you would pair that with ambushes at places that you inherently couldn't spawn, so like behind enemy lines or near an enemy objective. Did they lower the size of the American rockets? You know, the laws? Because what you're telling people from a basics perspective is that they get one attempt with the rocket and then they have to die to get another one because you can't rearm off of the radios. So for a majority of the vehicles, they'll punch straight through. So if you kill the gunner in a BTR, then you probably didn't kill the driver and it'll just drive away. If you killed the driver in a BTR, then the gunner's probably still okay. If you aimed bad and you didn't kill anyone or hit anyone in there, there's no incentive for a follow-up shot, which doesn't bode well for ambush play. It kind of makes sense from I spawned in at this objective and I can just grab another rocket launcher from the arsenal. But so can everyone else. So what are we doing there? I'm not entirely sure what that's supposed to represent gameplay wise. And then two, the concept of using rocket launchers to ambush people, that that means that I don't know. It I would argue that the devs probably don't play the game as much as they should, or interact with sections of the community that they absolutely should. Uh, Everyone that's watching this has played at least a match, even a partial match of Conflict, probably. If you haven't, I'm sorry that I'm talking about a bunch of stuff that makes no sense. You'll notice from the average match of Conflict that it's really hard for people to do logistics if you ask some people, take objectives if you ask most people, do defense if you ask most people. People tend to spawn inappropriate things at bases that don't make sense, right? Like if Chotain, if we're on the south side of the map, or main anyways, and we're trying to go north, and Chotain is our most forward base, right? You will often find that people will spawn lavs from Chotain and use up all of the supply, and you're like, I don't know about that. But all of these things hinge on a lack of either care or just straight up knowledge of the game, where people need to be, why an area is important, where can I sit to cut off enemy backlines. Seems like that lat roll hinges a lot on experience and engagement that people don't have in the game. I mean, the meme of the Soviets curb stomping the US every single match, unless you're on a server where the admins have decided to stack a particular team. I just don't think that makes sense from a design perspective. And if I'm in a milsim unit, I don't need in-game restrictions to replicate that feeling or that vibe anyways, because I'm just going to mod it in, or I'm just going to structure my squad out of game to reflect that. So I think that that's kind of indicative of a disconnect between what actually happens and just the devs thinking, well, in real life, rocket squads are more focused on ambushes. Doesn't really correlate to the game, though, does it? Moving on. The supply restriction for each person. Okay. I was very excited when I saw this. I very much agreed with it. And then, through 5 minutes of messing around, I noticed some things that immediately got me not excited for it. So, what this is, when it increases with each rank that you have, at private, you have 65 supply as a cap to mess around with to grab equipment and weapons and stuff. I have to be very careful with how I phrase this so I don't immediately give away the game on how I experienced everything. So initially, I just went into the arsenal, I saw the number, and I was like, okay. When you spawn in with a default kit, it immediately tells you how much off of that kit that you've got additional to work with for supply. So if I spawned in as the M14 guy, the sniper kit, or the sniper roll, it would tell me that I had, I think, like 12 supply remaining out of 65 additional that I could pull. So I could get like some extra magazines or maybe an extra grenade or stuff like that. That's what I initially noticed and thought. And with a restriction like that, I thought to myself, I've mentioned it in a previous episode, God, this must mean that there's a limitation on how much you can spend on vehicles based on rank. Not a rank restriction to get vehicles, but maybe a separate counter as far as like what you're allocated to dump into, right? Because they added in the ordinary game currently, right? Not experimental. They added in the rank restriction, um, so that way you couldn't just take the most expensive OP weapons in the game and have 400 loadout uh, or 400 supply cost loadouts. So they quelled a bit of that, but they didn't stop anyone from just spawning in 900 supply worth of vehicles in the span of 20 minutes. You walk up to the light vehicle depot and you can just spawn in as many Jeeps as you want as long as there are supplies for the base that you're on to do so. So they didn't set any restrictions for that, which basically nullified any intent with the rank restrictions on saving supply at bases. So I figured, well, if they've restricted down what you can pull from the arsenal more with the 65 supply cap that goes up. I don't know what it is for the other ranks. I'm a terrible person. I get it, whatever. For the additional ranks. But surely they would have thought about that. Nope. Nope. Not at all. You can still just pull whatever the fuck you want. Second thing that I immediately noticed about this, that number in the top left that says you've got, 12 remaining out of 65. So in general, as a dude starting out, first of all, your loadout is oftentimes more than 65 tickets. That number does not represent not only what your kit actually costs, it does not represent what you have on you at that moment. It is only a simple like actions based ledger, right? So you have 65 at any given time on paper. If you walk over, say we're on Montanak, right? Montanak is in the center of the map. It gets rocketed by helicopters all day and night. If I notice that I don't have enough supply in my cap or in my range to grab something, I can walk 3 feet over to some dead bodies. I can pull morphine was the most consistent thing and plentiful thing that I found. I can pull morphine from everybody's bodies, weapons too, and I can dump them back into the arsenal, and it gives me additional supply towards my cap or available supply to then pull out whatever I have access to for the supply. So again, this is one of those things where I can actually kind of balance that in my mind. Like, well, at least there's still kind of a general restriction for most people that don't care enough to see that. And two, like at the end of the day, what's the worst case scenario? You're just balancing out your costs, right? Because if I turn in 20 supply worth of morphine into the arsenal, then I should at least be able to pull that out. I put it in, like I'm not taking from anyone else's experience per se. But as far as intent goes, like just on paper, hey, we're adding in this thing to do this thing. I feel like that's a bit of a workaround that steals a little bit of the thunder, right? Am I the only person that has that feeling, that thought? You would think that that's a large incentive or an additional incentive to increase in rank and work through or past those caps. Except that it kind of isn't, because you could just turn in other people's weapons from being dead. Just, I don't know. Something I can't quite put into solid words why that's wrong, but I just feel like that's undercutting what they were intending there. Otherwise, I think that the supply restriction is all right. I think that it pairs reasonably well with the role restrictions and the squad restrictions. Um, don't worry, we're working through these pretty quick because I'm gonna spend 20 minutes on the commander role. Don't worry. Um, quick note: bunkers. They added in bunkers, 2-story bunkers. They're sandbags. Uh, in experimental, that was a large thing that was strangely missing from otherwise plethora or plentiful, I meant to say, fortifications that you throw down on a base. And so many objectives really benefit from a height advantage in certain areas for defense and for offense. They're terrible. They're garbage. It looks like it was made by a 5-year-old. I don't mean that to be just blatantly rude to the devs, but if you pop into experimental and take a look at it, God, I wish I took a screenshot of it so that way I could drag it on screen right now. Just undercutting what I said earlier about that just looking trashy and not wanting to look trashy. They're like different shades of sandbags. They're like the structure is made out of 2 different types of sandbags. What the fuck is up with that? What? Like the bottom layer are like kind of shiny. They're like new sandbags. If anyone's ever actually been in the military, you've got like, you remember like the old cloth sandbags that were still like green and they would fade almost immediately with any amount of sun exposure. And then you have like the new sandbags that are made out of like polyethylene weave or something. It's like plastic or like recycled plastic. It's like that texture difference, that color difference. The top is like made out of cloth and the bottom is made out of like shiny sand. It just looks garbage. It looks terrible. It looks like it was a community asset that was just ported over into the actual game. Also, when you stand in the bunker, you immediately notice a couple of things that are don't make any sense. For instance, the bottom of the bunker is more or less enclosed with a doorway. There are windows that face 3 directions. They are not even at weapon height. You have to use like the stance adjustment to actually see through those if the bunker isn't on perfectly flat ground, because the bunker tilts and your guy does not. Your guy will always stand straight up and down, but the item will tilt with the terrain. It'll conform to the terrain. So that's terrible. And the windows are so goddamn small that I don't. I think that if you were to try and shoot through those, most of your bullets oftentimes would hit the window. The angle wouldn't quite match up. The second story of the bunker tower, to get up it, it is a slanted ladder, but they haven't. They obviously just took an ordinary ladder and tilted it to its side because you have to be basically standing on top of the ladder at the bottom to be in the context radius to actually get on the ladder. You can be like a foot away and it'll say press F to get on, and it just won't work because you're like not close enough to the ladder. It's weird. Also, on some terrains, the ladder is tilted at such a slope that you can just walk up it, but you can't get into the second story for the bunker because the ladder extends 2 feet into the fucking bunker. So, and this hurts you on the flip side because if you're in the second story of the bunker and you go to get out, you have to vault over or past the ladder. You can't just walk out or hop out, which doesn't make any sense to me. Hopefully that ladder is just like a placeholder or something. Have it stand up straight up and down. What's wrong? It definitely doesn't make any sense why it's tilted or tilted to that degree. And if so, just make it a fucking sandbag staircase. Like what's the issue? You can't stand under the ladder to hide. But the whole thing is made out of sandbags already. What's the issue? And then also, the second story of the bunker is shorter, or I should say, not half the height, but almost half the height of standing on top of a camo net. So it isn't even the best option that you have. It's certainly not um, as inexpensive, I should say, as a large camo net. What's the point of it? So it would be fantastic if they would at least scale that up, fix the ladder issue. Maybe I would use it. Probably still not. The as you can tell, we're slightly biased. CamoNet podcast. CamoNet is like a pseudo religion. Okay, it's just so good. It's just so good. I mean, look at this background, right? Like it's almost like a crown. The sand, like I almost said sandbag. The CamoNet itself features its own cover, right? Because you can just hide behind one of the little peaks on the camo net for linear or linear horizontal fighting. Um, and then the camo net, you can shoot through it and you can use that to your advantage sometimes because sometimes people just won't want to shoot through the camo net. There could be a Russian on the other side of this camo net, and I could be standing on top of it or on the other side, and we could both know that we're there. The other guy, for most of the time, just doesn't want to shoot through it for some reason. You can shoot through it, so it can get you out of a jam. One wall, you can kind of see it in the center. I'll be trashy and use my mouse. You can kind of see in the center right here the layers that you're looking through on the camo net give you additional concealment, so it's harder to see through it. You can kind of see right here, like right here, if someone was standing below me, they would immediately see me. If someone was standing on the other side of this wall, on the other side of the camo net, if you just visualize, right, I'd be pretty hidden. And this is daytime, right? This isn't night. So there's so much depth and ways that you can use the camo net, and the fucking bunker is just garbage. Like, what are you doing? Just wanted to give an honorable mention to that because the theme for this is camo nets. So, anytime that I can shit on anything that's supposed to be a competitor to the camo net, go for it. Please, dear God, Bohemia, please don't punish me by making the camo nets not so that we can't walk on them. Please, please, please. And then the last thing. So, this is me reaching. I could be completely wrong. I fucking hope that I am completely wrong. We're going to talk a little bit about like macro dynamics and what typically happens on your team and in your squad and stuff like that here. Something that I was really hoping for that I initially thought was an inclusion, but looking back now, I don't think that it was, is there still needs to be squad lead quality of life improvements for curating and pseudo punishments that just aren't here, and it doesn't make any sense. Now, in the game, I thought that I had seen from the group menu, which is P if you're on console, it brings up like all the groups on your team in a more digestible format than like from the map way. I thought that I had seen removed from group, but there was a typo because it says remove group. However, I do not think that you can remove people from your group still as a squad lead. I think that was a disband group, remove the group that I had because I was the game master / admin on my little local instance. I am very confident in looking back on that was the case. That's a fucking issue. Okay? With this coming update, you are making a lot of demands that the game can currently not support. You're cashing a lot of checks that just are bouncing every time. There is currently no way to curate your squad, okay? You are adding slot restrictions with certain squads not being The medic squad was 2 people, the assault squad was 6 people, the sapper squad was 2 people. You're setting a lot of restrictions that people aren't even going to be able to maintain. Because if I can't kick someone from my squad, are we really a fucking assault squad? What's the point of theming that and not making it so that way everyone can just make a squad and then theme it whatever they want to get that role, right? Um, just a fucking I'm just gonna go hard in the paint every opportunity that I have, and I feel like it would just be a simple inclusion. And the fact that it's not here and it's not in experimental, again, if I'm wrong, please spam me, let me know that I'm wrong, and please then provide context or a screenshot or something like that, or a video or a clip. I would be happy to be wrong on this subject. But honestly, the fact that it's just not in the base game right now, fuck the experimental, is a joke. It's a joke, and I think it's a statement that says a lot, that your priorities are in other places, and I think that it's a large symbol that they do not play the game. They do not. Maybe when you see in the Arma Discord that they're playing Reforger, maybe they're playing like their own fucking dev branch or something, and it's just labeled the same game. But that's something that you can see and feel with 5 minutes in the game. It really seriously bothers me. It really fucking does. If you add these role restrictions and these theme restrictions, right? I'll touch on it in a second, but with the commander, if you hypothetically, apparently I didn't see it because I was the only person on my fucking thing, but if you want an additional squad made, you have to ping the commander for it. You have to ask the commander for it, right? But I can't fucking kick people from my squad. If someone's in my squad hot miking, the best I can do is fucking mute them, right? If someone in my squad is refusing to play with the squad, or if I have the guy in my squad that's team killing everyone on an objective, I can't just kick him. But then also, I have a strong feeling that they would fuck that up too. Like, okay, well, I kicked him to a squad and it just automatically put him in someone else's squad. I'm telling you, there are just pieces with a lot of these things, right? I was going to button this up into a message at the end after I talk about some of the commander stuff, but, just to mention it really quick, and then maybe I can expand on it later. Expound is a funny word. I think that they looked at a lot of stuff that Squad had, and they didn't spend any effort or energy to figure out why that stuff worked so well, or how that stuff worked. They saw that Squad had a commander role, so they added a commander role. People asked for it, and they added it. At no point did they learn any of the minutia of like how the commander works and what he can do for Squad, and therefore why that works so well. Same thing with like just having squads, right? Well, Squad, the squads are just kind of vague. You can make 30 of them that don't really mean anything. If you could just have 30 or how many ever people are on your team, one-man squads. We don't really agree with that. So what if we make it so that way each squad is linked to a frequency, but then, that doesn't really solve the issue. It just gives each squad kind of purpose. And everything's connected by radios, so like that makes sense with our lore, but how are we going to make that like really meaningful? Okay, well, we'll add a cap to how many squads there can be, so there can only be 10 or 15 squads, and then if you want to play from there, you have to be in a squad. Well, how do we incentivize people like actually being in squads then? We make it as a requirement, so that way you literally have to be in a squad when you first come into the server to spawn in. Okay, oh, well, what if the squad disbands or the squad leader leaves? Well, it'll just automatically kick you to another squad. Oh, yeah, that seems like a decent workaround. At no point did they think about, like, what if people are internet people? What if people are trolling? What if people are team killing? What if there's no admin on? What the fuck do people do for the official servers? Oh, well, that's why we instituted the player vote kicking. Well, most of the fucking time when that comes up, you have no idea why the person's being vote kicked out. So usually, if the person's being vote kicked out, they don't even get kicked out or voted out. Because no one knows, right? Some guy in team chat or platoon chat is just saying that he team killed me a bunch of times, but I wasn't there. I don't know. Squad is called squad because the power is vested wisely in squad leads, right? Squad leads do most, really, of the adminning and like curation. If I'm a squad lead in squad and there's a guy, I can see him on the map, he's nowhere near us, and he's not responding to our messages or anything like that, I can kick him from the squad and open that up to someone else that might want to play near us. And that's an effective adminning tool because when I kick him from the squad, he has to be in a squad to play with specific roles. Okay, well, Reforger has that too. Well, when he gets kicked from the squad, he doesn't just instantly join someone else's squad or get kicked to someone else's squad. He loses his kit, and it graciously, as like a hedging tool, it gives you like a base gun with iron sights with like a couple of magazines, so that way, like, if your squad leads a dick, you can have like a temporary ability to like fight through the enemy or work your way back to a base to whatever. But even when you, like, if I get kicked from a squad, even if I join another squad, I still have a default kit with like no ammo and no abilities, no equipment. I still have to go back to a squad or back to a base or die to choose another kit, right? And that means that you really don't need admins to curb a lot of the issues and balancing in squad like you do with Reforger. Like, you just, everyone on the team boots that guy. And then he can't team kill tons of people and can't abuse certain kits because he doesn't have access to them. It's crazy. And that's just like the glue, how the things, squad has this list of things. Well, let's add that list of things in Reforger. Well, that list of things works really well for reasons that you like didn't seem to care about. And that brings me to the commander role, okay? They saw that squad had a commander role. They're like, God, that makes a whole lot of sense. People in our game are talking about how most teams, especially for US side, don't really have like drive, don't really have vision. Default Everon for conflict has 50 something objectives. The map's really wide. Like, God, that really isn't typically working out. It'd be great if there was a way for like one person to be able to dictate where the team goes. And it's supposed to be a team game. Teams are led by like typically one or two people. That makes sense. And squad has it, and squad's really successful, so let's do that. The squad commander works as well as it does because they didn't change the trust or like the squad system. They just added in this extra tertiary role on top, and then they kind of justified it by giving it some abilities and some things that you interact with. But you can go often. I say this as someone that hasn't played squad in a couple of years, but you could go an entire match. You could go an entire set of matches, 3, 4, 5 matches, without a commander on your team at all, against an enemy team that had a commander every match. And you still had the same odds of winning as if you had a commander. Because the command role was really just a different way, in some instances, to do stuff that you could already do in the game, right? There's a UAV ability. There's a cooldown. Once you've been the commander for X amount of time, you can go to a spawn. We call them habs. And you can access your commander abilities. And you could pick a point on the map and fly a UAV over there. And you would give like a circling aerial view of an area. So if you thought that an enemy spawn was in an area, you could put a UAV over there. If you were going to go attack an enemy objective, you could see what was there. There are helicopters in the game. You could just do that with a helicopter. Or you could just push a singular guy over there, and he'll be like, yep, the enemy spawns over here. I died. All right, well, let's go attack it, right? At no point do you have to have the UAV ability. There's a field artillery barrage and an airstrike ability. The airstrike ability gives you like a very large damage radius that you would like use your UAV as the commander. You'd be like, oh, there's an enemy spawn right there, and you would set down an airstrike symbol or whatever, a request where that spawn was, and then it would take out that spawn, except that it's really inconsistent and it doesn't go through buildings. So all you have to do is place your spawn in a building, which they're large and empty in squad, and you wouldn't take out the thing. And two, they're really kind of finicky. They played with the damage all the time that the airstrikes would do, so that way they weren't super effective. Well, you know what's even more effective and efficient than using the airstrike and maybe not even getting the spawn? You just push a squad over there. There are spawn restrictions based on if there are enemies nearby, right? That's a surefire way to get rid of the spawn. You have 9 people go attack the base that only has 2 people there that are choosing their loadouts on the ammo crate. Pretty good. 9 shovels, maybe an airstrike that misses. Meh. And then the field artillery barrage is just a fucking joke. Like, it's so inaccurate, and it kills people that are standing outside perfectly fine, but they just respawn, right? And like, they're not great for taking out habs or radios. They don't go through buildings all that well, which on most maps is what you would want the thing to do. You would want to clear like a large swath of an area. You can just shoot people, right? That's the alternative. There are 60. How many people are on each team? 50. There are 50 people on the team. Probably 20 of them are because the maps are smaller and more focused. Probably 20 people in a given area. Probably just count on the 20 people shooting people that are standing in front of them. Right, but the commander role works really great in squad because you don't actually need it. And nothing really aside from those commander interaction things, like as a squad lead, if I see an enemy hab, I can put down a command request marker and say like, hey, right there, and my guy points at it. And he's like, and it marks it on the map for the commander. He can accept or deny that. That's the only thing. I don't have to ask the commander if I can play a certain kit or go to a certain area or take a certain objective. That's why it's not cancer. Everything. Oh, probably shouldn't do that on a publicly released thing. Stuff the microphone into my mouth. Everything, it seems, runs through the fucking commander for Reforger, right? Oh, you want to build a base? Because just to kind of explain what conflict with the commander looks like in experimental right now, right? Say you have all of the major objectives in the center of the map. You can choose, obviously, still as a server owner, like where your major objectives are, but say you have them in the center of the map, and you get rid of all of the minor objectives. Simon's Wood, Montanac, well, I guess Montanac's a major objective, but Tiller's Find, Gravette, Pinewood, all that stuff that's kind of in the middle, right? Conflict with the commander is just the major objectives, and you have to build the bases to get within radio range to interact with those main objectives, right? You put down Gravette, you put down then Tiller's Find, and then you put down Villanueva, and that gets you within radio range of taking Cav Hill. You have to explicitly ask the commander for all of those bases if you can even build something there. You do not get to choose as a squad lead. If you are a squad lead, you can ask the commander. Other people, it seems, cannot that are in the squad. So there's a little bit of specialty or purpose for the squad lead role. But you cannot accept that. So the commander could just be a dick or have never played commander before, i.e., if we are in a clan or community's server and there is only 1 or 2 people with that tag on for that team, people would instinctively vote for those people because it's their fucking server. Like, if anyone knows how to do the thing, it would probably be them. And they can just shit the bed and immediately lose the match for you. They don't have meta knowledge or anything like that, right? Like, you have everything running through this command role, but you have no way of like vetting the command role, which I just think is a terrible opportunity that is begging to happen. Not only that, I think that it will happen for most matches. Um, the commander, just kind of run through the features, I suppose. Um, the commander can do set up AI logistics runs, so you don't actually need anyone on your team that's a person doing logistics runs. You can have AI do it for you. What the fuck does that mean on servers that turned off AI? Probably nothing. You just don't get to do that. That's a third of the role gone. Cool, whatever. Um, you can set within that, within the logistics, which you would only be able to really take advantage of if you had AI on. You can set minimum triggers, and I thought you could set a maximum trigger for something, but I don't. I guess that's just setting logic for the AI. So if a base gets below a certain supply level, AI will come in and do a run to that base, and then you can set a maximum where you're like, well, I don't ever want this base to really ever have like more than 2,000 build, and then the AI will adhere to that. I did not see any evidence whatsoever that you could set restrictions for the base. So, hey, you can't spawn in armor here. That's not the purpose of this base. Which is something that I hear people that are brand new to the game voice in conflict with no prompting. Uh, I guess that's not necessarily true. It's obviously like overflow conversations from people mentioning something with the commander or something like that. But they will say, like, hey, there's never any supply here, and this is a frontline base. Why are you spawning that here? Why are you spawning a helicopter here? Like, dude, what are you doing? We're getting attacked right now, and you're trying to spawn a helicopter, which is weird because you would think that the commander would have the ability to curate an area and set restrictions like that and set a theme for an area. Weird. Interesting. Also, you would assume and hope, at least I do, that the commander could just go in and set a hard limit. A hard, you will not go below this number for bases to account for modules that could be built and stuff, right? If I look at Simon's Wood, I'm the commander on the map, and I see that it doesn't have a first aid 10, it doesn't have a living quarters, doesn't have any of that stuff. I would like to be able to say, hey, or say Chotain, I guess this is a better example because it's a little bit more dynamic, right? Like, hey, when we started the match, it was daytime, it's kind of becoming nighttime or getting to that time in the match or in the day in game. I'm going to go through a couple of bases and set minimums. No one can pull below 700 supplies. So if I spawn in at Chotan and the base has 700 supplies, I have to wait for it to gain additional supplies. It's effectively for me 0. But then if I want to build floodlights to account for nighttime, or if I want to build like a first aid tent or something like that that helps the team, I can do that because I have the supply that's available, right? You can effectively section off bits of your supply. I would, I said that like that because I think that's how simplistic they would add it. In general, I would like you to just be able to set all sorts of limitations for stuff like that, right? There should be a sliding bar for like, hey, do you want to have a reserve for build? And then you could just set that to whatever number you wanted. So like once that could work in both directions, right? Like for Simon's Wood, if I notice that there's kind of nothing built there, I can set the minimum for that, or I can set the trigger for that at like 800 build. So that way, if you spawn there, you can only spawn there. You can't pull anything from the arsenal until it gets to 800 supply, XYZ, whatever. I think I'm communicating that well, but or bad. I think my words are bad, but the idea is kind of understood. Um, that is not present with the commander role. The assignment of objectives like defense and offense and stuff like that. Again, I was on a server by myself, so I didn't really get to see it all that well, but I would assume that you, because they've talked about it in like patch notes and stuff like that, if you take an objective that has an attack marker on it, then you get additional experience. If you defend an objective that is being marked as like critical, or the commander is deemed as like, hey, we need to defend this, then you get additional experience. However, I have a concern. This is my first concern because I don't actually know, that I'll voice specifically with commander role. Did they change how you get experience? I'd be willing to bet that they didn't, and they won't, right? What do you do if you want to play with a specific weapon, but you don't have the rank? You don't attack an objective in the base game right now, right? Because you don't get experience for running to an objective or attacking an objective. You get experience for doing defense in the radius of a base, and you get experience in a lump sum if you take an objective. You do not get experience for moving across the map, committing to an objective, or being on an enemy objective, okay? You only get the lump sum if you are there for that last 1%, right? So if you spend 95% of your time, I'll give a really consistent example. If it's north-south on the map, Russia's north, US south, and you just took Fagari, and Russia just took Province, you can fight over Province and get it 96% of the way there. But you have to defend these objectives for a long period of time. Arguably, the server owner can go through and adjust that timer, but like the default that more or less everyone sticks to is pretty long. It's got to be 10 minutes. At the very least, it feels like 10 minutes. If you die when the objective is at 98%, and enough people on your team on Province survive to finish taking the objective, the game does not fucking care about your feelings, and it does not care about what you just contributed to. You do not get any of that experience. Crazy, crazy. What's the US team's worst quality? Oh, they never attack. No one wants to do offense. Everyone mentions that the US team is Barbie doll simulator and that everyone just wants to kid up and do stuff. Maybe a bit of that is driven by the fact that they didn't get to play with what they wanted or how they wanted for the last 2 hours. Because even on increased experience servers, you can only do one of two things consistently to gain experience. You can run supplies, or you can sit and AFK on a base doing defense. Hey, here's a really simple idea. You know that, like, lump sum bit of experience that you would get from taking the base, right? What if, okay, stick with me here. What if we just broke that down in the same way as the defense bonuses? It's almost like, because the defense bonuses exist based on a simple math equation of time in the radius. You can change the math equation as a server owner, but say every 5 minutes that someone spends doing defense on this objective, is it a frontline base or is it not, right? There's logic for that. So if it is a frontline base, I want you to reward 200 experience every 5 minutes. So it's almost like that math equation already exists in the game. Maybe for every minute that someone spends on an enemy objective, period, it gives that person an experience bonus. And then if they're actively taking the objective, it is a significantly larger experience bonus. Almost, one could say, small chunks of what you would ultimately get if you took the objective, but paid out over the course of taking the objective. So now you incentivize people going and at least attempting to do the thing instead of just sitting on a base waiting for the enemy to come to them. Interesting, interesting. And then that would also incentivize solos and duos who kind of don't have any, I almost said skin in the game, but don't really have any God, weird text just threw me off. Business going and attacking Cav Hill or like a major objective on like Montanak, and it actually incentivizes those guys playing stealthy by hiding in a bush and relaying information to their team because they're watching the enemy movements and they're seeing when like, okay, a bunch of people just spawned on Montanak, but I know as an experienced player that no one ever wants to actually do defense. So all these guys are going to spawn in a truck and drive away, and then maybe I can drive in, or then I can relay to my team like, hey, now's the time to attack. Interesting. The game is deeper than just the paper features that you add. Interesting. There's almost an economy of choice that you just don't fucking care about. That's cool. And a big piece of that could feed into the commander role, right? The recon order that you can give to people. Maybe that is that disparity, that experience difference, right? Maybe I set a recon order on province because as a commander, I fucking know that we're not going to take it. But I can incentivize some people going over there and kind of looking out and being the initial force. Maybe they hide in the barn on province, they kind of hang out, just wait a minute off of the objective, you know? Maybe because effectively what the commander is doing when he places down those objective markers, it is placing an invisible radius that just has a different script interaction, right? So I could effectively set an experience incentive for going to this place. I could set that just off of the objective, maybe on the northeast hill from province, overlooking the objective. And then I could set an attack order there, and the two could work in concert. Maybe. Do you think if they made any of these changes, by the way, they would communicate it in an efficient manner? Do you think they would have they would update the tutorial, or they would have like a main menu blurb that's like, hey, we changed a lot. Please click on this tab to see what we changed. Or are we just going to make a really long Steam update post about it? Does that update post appear for console players, I wonder? Probably not, right? Interesting. Interesting. It's kind of like the issue that Tarkov has, right? Right? I haven't played Tarkov in a minute, but I watch every fucking podcast about it, and every other streamer play it. It's almost like for this most recent update, a big annoyance with the update is that you could only find out about considerable pieces of it ahead of time if you had Nikita's Twitter. God, that's a shitty idea. That's a shitty experience. Maybe you should have just vetted the update post, right? Or like the patch notes. Maybe? No, people have to find out that there are no quests available at the beginning of the wipe from a Twitter post. Interesting. That's kind of the vibes that I feel from this. So that's not fantastic. Other issues that I have with the commander role. Because the squad leads have no purpose, even though there's only a certain amount of them. So there are 64 hypothetically player teams, and you can't make 64 squads. You can only make like 15 or 20. Interesting how it's not a squad lead vote. To vote for the commander, I believe that you have to be a squad lead. If you join a game late and you're a really good player or an experienced commander, does this just mean that you don't get to interact with the command role? Someone would have to leave as a squad lead or promote you to squad lead to apply for the command role. Okay, that's one potential flaw. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So you have to be a squad lead, hypothetically, to apply for the command role. But the entire team can vote yes or no. Wonder if there's another team voting mechanic that doesn't really work. Oh, that's right. It's vote kicking, right? Where people either wrongly get kicked because someone just voted for them and everyone else on the team is like, sure, whatever. Or it doesn't work at all, right? Let's lock the role that all decisions, team-wise, are locked behind to a team vote in a game mode where the largest group I've seen was 10, which isn't a complaint, but most people are solo, duo, or trios. If you're playing in a trio, understand that you're in the top 1% of communication effectiveness in the game. What are the chances that this just doesn't work? Right? You have to get a majority of the votes to get approved, right? What are the chances that you just consistently have 40 people on your team that instinctively hit no because they don't fucking care or because they're new at the game, right? What are the chances of that? Also, what are the chances that you go an entire match, technically, if someone is the commander, another squad lead can go and vote themselves in to replace the commander, and it just repeats the vote, right? You just have the ability to vote for this guy to replace the current commander. What are the chances then, in the same breath, right? What are the chances that the vote just immediately comes back as no because you can't get a majority of people? Because a majority of the people that are on the US team for this match have 10 hours in the game, or don't know enough about the game, or didn't communicate or interact with the commander to know if he's actually doing a bad job or not. For the same reason that people can cry and scream they got team killed by a guy over and over and over again in platoon chat, but if there's no kill feed on, then how am I, as someone that just came into the game, to know that, right? I don't want to vote someone out if I don't actually know, because the same thing could happen to me, right? Golden rule, treat others as you would want to be treated yourself. So then the AI just makes decisions for your team? Huh. Servers that turn off AI do so because they want to deal with player decisions, and because the AI immediately just crashes your server with the amount of, like, hardware issues and requirements that it comes with. Conflict, fun fact, comes plus 600% on the AI allocation. If you get your own training server, you host your own training server, you put the game mode as conflict, you literally can't spawn in your own AI as the game master because there are so many AI already on the map. Seems weird that you would then let an AI make decisions for the team in lieu of a commander, because those wouldn't be curated at all. Like, what happens when the commander leaves, right? Say we don't want to go straight north, okay? In my hypothetical example, because I play on Warpix, right, north-south is the most consistent. I think that that's objectively how the map was designed to be played, because it's got natural choke points on the north and south side, whatever. Anyways, Soviets on the north side, Americans on the south side, full map. Say we want to hold or hook around on the east side, right? We want to go Laruns, Chotain, Coastal Base Chotain, Andres Beacon, wrap around to Hornbeam, right? The Soviets outmatch us for a majority of the map. They've got better weapons. We want to be cunning, okay? If the commander leaves and we're only at Coastal Chotain, does the AI sense like what our direction was? Can you set like some logic as the outgoing commander for the incoming commander AI? Or does it just put down a bunch of stuff based on a radius? I'd be willing to bet that it's the latter piece. That's a good experience. Interesting. Also, a concern, because I've been talking about this for a hot minute, a concern that I have with the commander role that I would very, dear God, hope that the devs had thought of, at the least, is what happens when there's a vote going for the commander, right? Now, I don't think that it costs anything. It doesn't like cost supply or anything like that as a commander to put down like an objective marker or something like that. If someone just doesn't like me and they constantly spam a command tent to vote themselves in as the commander, if it becomes obvious that I'm going to lose my role as the commander, what's to stop me from just like fucking everything up, right? You're putting a lot of I want to leave off with this. I'd mentioned it kind of before. You're putting a lot of pressure. You're hinging a lot of a team's success. Not only success, gameplay, period. If the commander doesn't approve or put down base build requests, you just lose. You don't get to fucking walk over to Province and take it. You don't get to take any of those main objectives because you have to daisy chain your way to those main objectives. What? That's asking a lot out of people that can't even attack the objective that's next to them. Okay? That's fucking crazy. So, not that anyone gives a damn or is actually listening to this for criticism or good advice, dev advice. Make it so that way squad leads can kick people from their squads because it's their fucking squad, right? Make it so that way the commander is voted on by squad leads who should be, as squad leads, tracking more of what's going on the map. You know, they're managing their guys. Oh, hey, we've tried to take Province for the past 20 minutes. It's not working. Maybe we need to try something else, right? Ideally, people that, you know, then have an opportunity to like, you know, I don't really like playing with the rifleman or the GL. I'm a squad lead, right? In squad, you can just main being a squad lead, right? And maybe no one knows you, no one trusts you, so you're only ever in a squad by yourself. You can still do squad lead stuff, you just don't have access to the better guns. Then that would give that meaning. And then you would actually have an opportunity to vote for the commander with the people that should have been tracking the meta or how the team or match is going for your team up until this point, instead of just hoping that a majority of the team votes yes. I spent so long when I was playing squad thinking like, God, there's so many things that are just fantastic in Arma 3 at the time. Like, why don't you just borrow from that, right? They added the helicopters in squad, and I went, oh my God, Arma's more like niche than squad. Squad is a more streamlined and easy to learn, easy to get into game. And they made the helicopter flying harder than Arma 3's helicopter flying. If you're not using the advanced flight model, which is an option, you just take it. For Arma 3, it's so approachable. It's so easy. You might just land slower than everyone else. It's so smooth and fun. that was my favorite thing, and probably a lot of other people's for Arma 3, right? King of the Hill. You're not the most amazing pilot. You're not doing backflips, but it feels just so fun to fly people around and land people into places and stuff. And then Squad just added, like, just dog shit. Oh, there's a raise in collective system, and you can't do third person, you can only do first person. So you've got this bar that fills up in front of you, and there's a delay between the bar filling up and the engine actually like going up. So if you want to go up in the air, there's about a 2 second delay in, well, the bar is full, but the engine has to like speed up to meet that. So for that same reason, I'm now on the flip side going like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why? It's so simple. The core game for Reforger is so great. The gunplay is so great. The performance in some areas is so much better than Squad. How do you mess up, like, not even, we're not even talking about like they added something that I don't like. They added something that I like or should like. I like most of it. It's so close to fine tuning. It's so close. Like the signal flares thing. How the fuck did you think that people were asking for signal flares when they were talking about handheld flares? No, they're just talking about it fucking sucks at nighttime that if I want to see, I have to choose a GL kit, which costs 42 tickets for the US. And then the flares are 3 tickets per flare. So if I go into for effectively a nighttime GL loadout, again, I might not have any interest in playing as the GL. I might just want to illuminate an area before I attack it. It costs like 70 tickets or 70 supplies, 72 I guess technically, because the GL weapon is 42. And then it's 3 tickets per flare. You're going to want to go into an area for sustained offense and defense, right? Because once you take the objective, now you got to defend it. Or rather, once you take over the objective offense, you're defending it so you can capture it. So you have to have flares to attack it and to sustain yourself there. How did you get that out of that? Who are you talking to? Where's the fucking Reddit post? Which is funny because I'm going to post this to Reddit, but I don't fucking care. That disconnect exists with literally everything that I saw on the experimental update, or the experimental branch. I'm just like, what the fuck? And then too, from the server owner side, from the server admin side, these are all things that you can't tweak. You can't mess with like the fire modes. You can't mess with the distances. You can't, if you want to add something that is not currently in the vanilla game, it has to be a mod. I can't just make tweaks to what already exists in the game. How does that make sense? Right? If I want an infantry only server, I can't just say no helicopters. It's only global updates, right? All of this stuff wouldn't be as bad if you could just tweak all of it as a server owner. If I'm not adding anything, if I'm just tweaking what's already there for the game, you don't have fucking licensed servers, so there's no terms of use to accept. Most of these games, I mean, console side, I suppose, but console can play on custom servers now. They're not played on official servers. They're played on custom servers that people had to buy, they pay for every month. The fuck do you mean I can't have an infantry-only server? What if I don't like auto or full auto, right? I don't like that the Soviets, like, basic default rifle just has full auto, and the US doesn't. You can get the M16 to shoot really quick, but for console, you don't have that as an option, right? Why can't I tweak that? Why can't you tweak any of this? What are we doing? A game that is infamous for customization and fine-tuning doesn't have customization or fine-tuning to a large extent. I just... What are we doing? What are we doing? Anyways, we're going to leave that off with that. trying to get this recording to like sit just at 2 hours. I didn't even want this to do an hour and 30. I thought without Skittles here, because wasn't going to have like back and forth and stuff, it was going to be an hour 30. We're already over. We're going to lead into my little leader's corner. Still doesn't have an official name. Who cares? Who even makes it this far to the recording, really? We're going to talk a little bit about group size management. I've talked about group and community burnout before. We're just going to talk about literal in-game group size management. And this is actually just going to be a really quick mention. If you're watching this and you're in a milsim unit, you feel this more than anyone else. But for casual, ordinary players, right? How fun is it to go attack a major objective and you find that 15 of your friendlies are already there? And there's nothing to do. You just stand around and then you take the objective. You're like, okay. How fun is it at the beginning of the game if you're on a server with no AI to just take 5 bases one after another, right? You just mob around as a group, and because you've got a bunch of people on the objective, you just take it immediately, right? It's not very fun. When you're managing a group, whether it's a group of friends or whether it's a community, whether it's a milsim group and you're playing pubs, I would argue as well that this applies to milsim dynamics. So if you're on like a mission or something like that, be very wary of how many people that you bring to an area or assign a task. Because if you assign 60 people, say this is a milsim event or a one life event or something like that, say you assign 60 people the task of taking a town, 40 of those people will shoot a guy, and then they're going to walk forward, they're going to do the formations that you want to do, and you're going to find that it's a fucking boring night. How annoying is it on a public server for conflict or a casual server? I don't have a term for that. An ordinary server. How fun is it to spend, let's say Chotain, let's say coastal Chotain to Entrepreneur, right? How fun is it to run all the way there because you don't want to take a car, because every time you drive, you flip it over immediately like I do. You walk all the way there, and your team's been there capturing it for the last 7 minutes, and it's got 20% left. You're like, oh, I kind of wanted to have value and shoot things, and I wanted to be important. Everyone at the end of the day, to an extent, has main character syndrome. And if you've only got an hour and a half, 2 hours to play, you want to have fun. Mobbing around as a giant group is not fun, and it does not make you feel like you were necessary, like you needed to be there. Speaking specifically to the milsim people, because not that I think any milsim people listen to this. God, weird pings. That's a weird channel. People sign up in milsim groups to do very boring tasks in the spirit of either roleplay or stepping into pseudo different shoes, right? You want to be a piece of a team, separately we're all individuals, but together we can complete hard tasks. Doesn't feel great when you've only got 3 enemy AI in a village. And then what probably could have spent, 20, 30 minutes fighting through the town takes 5 minutes. And then specifically for, I think, a majority of the people that are going to be listening to this that might actually care about it. If you've got a group of 2 to 3 people, maybe 4 people, you got a group of friends, and you more or less end up being the decision maker, or you care enough to bring this up to your group, split people. If we're going to go attack military hospital, have a couple of people hit the south side and have a couple of people hit the east side, right? Because then we're not chewing on the same ground. Crowding an area means that you're effectively just waiting for people to die, and then you can step in, you can watch that angle, you can hold that land, you can watch that doorway. be cognizant of overdoing it, being too efficient, right? I run a competitive team, not that I'm shilling. Um, I'm designing my squad structure to reflect this because I want everyone to feel like in their given mission or in their given area, in their squad, they are critical, right? We really need you to show up tonight because otherwise, right, like I don't really play as a lat player. If my guy that loves shooting rockets at stuff doesn't show up, I feel genuine pain and annoyance when he's not there. And I want him to know that. Not as like a, hey man, you can't fucking miss tonight. But as a, hey man, like, we could really use you tonight. And that gives people the the fuel that they need to stay on for that like extra hour and a half sometimes. It gets people on next weekend or tomorrow because they want to like have that opportunity again. The fun experiences in this game don't come from taking objectives with a team. They come from soloing objectives. They come from killing 7 people as one guy and just holding that base. Uh, you can effectively replicate that while making sure that you do take the base by having 3, 4 guys total just attack different angles, come in from different spots. Um, if you're going to attack coastal base Chotan, have a guy snipe from the hill and do call outs, and then have a couple of people wrap around like the docks, or to the docks, I should say. Now that guy might have the opportunity to like kill people that are looking for him because he's an annoyance, or he has to hide in a bush and do some close gunplay, and it's not quite boring for him. Um, that's huge, absolutely huge, and it actually feeds in as like a burnout um, management tool where there's something different, there's something engaging going on, and what you have set as a goal might not be reasonable or realistic, but that's a different subject, and that's on you. From their perspective, you should be giving people opportunities to be important, to feel important, and to clutch, right? Like, if I just played with a group of guys and every time I asked, like, hey, we could go to Cav Hill, like, maybe we don't just need to sit on Pinewood for the entire match, and I just get told no all the time, that's fucking boring. And then I never get an opportunity to get good at offense. I never get the opportunity to fail or see that tree line didn't really work out, or well, you basically just walk up to Cav Hill from the northwest side and the southeast side because you just walk with the bushes and then bam, you're right on the objective. Um, so that's what I would say for the leaders corner. I'm running out of things to talk about for the leaders corner. Just because it's not really anything outside of a competitive context that matters for leaders. The new section, move into this. The new player section. Also, no official name, but this is just tips and content and things to be thinking about. As a new player, I've covered a lot of this stuff in like my group content, like my training content, but it's stuff that I see it consistently in like Reddit threads and stuff as a question, so I feel like it's worth mentioning. Again, insinuating that anyone's gonna make it this far in the video is crazy, but I see a lot of people consistently asking me, or I'll talk to people that say that they're new in game. Sorry, I'm getting kind of stuffy. God, that's weird. Maybe I just need like some water or something. Professional podcast, by the way. What do you do as a new player? What should you be focusing on? Basically, understand that the Soviets are going to win and the US team is going to lose. If you're an experienced player, that should actually mean that you choose the US team more often than the Soviets, because that's an additional challenge for you to work against. And then, funny enough, flip side of the coin, if you're a new player, don't join the Soviets, because there's something about the Soviet team, whether it's the balance of the weapons or just how it stacks out on a server. Uh, People that are playing like truly solo or don't want to talk to anyone tend to choose the Soviet side. So if you're looking for a lot of help in game, arguably the US team is the better one to go with. Just because the Soviet team wins more doesn't mean that the Soviet team is more cohesive or talking to each other. So understand that, first of all. Second of all, if you just came into a server, you don't know. For every match is different because every match consists of different people, and people can swap sides at the beginning of each match. So with every match that you come into, um, I highly recommend gaining an opportunity or taking the opportunity to just kind of watch the map a little bit, set your expectations, right? It's really hard to do land nav when you're in person in game. Um, but the map is just the map, right? The objectives display, and you can start to build with basically no time in game and no skill required for each match. You can start to build aggregate knowledge to later use and put into practice by just looking at the map and seeing like, oh, we're losing everything on the east side, but we're kind of holding on to everything on the west side. And a lot of times when you watch the map like that, you can ask yourself questions that later get answered with a little bit of thinking, like, God, north south, we lose everything on the east side pretty consistently. Why is that? Well, the east side of the map on Evron, it's really condensed with objectives. The west side of the map, everything's way more spread out. Also, if you're north-south, and in that context, I mean like your base is on the very north of the map, and the enemy base is on the south, and vice versa. I don't mean like in the middle piece of the island north-south. You can just kind of cut from like one choke point to the other, and that's more or less on the east side of the map, right? The west side of the map is kind of fucking useless um, in most matches. So what I would say is when you come into a server, just join a squad. It doesn't matter. Make one, join one. No one's gonna talk anyways. It doesn't fucking matter. There's no point or aim to the squads. Most of the time you'll join and no one's gonna talk back to you, even if you have a squad lead or people in your squad that would communicate. You can't communicate if you're dead. And if those people haven't spawned in yet, you're not going to hear them over the radio. So join a squad. Pick a point on the map that is a frontline objective. So and what that means is you don't want to spawn in on Simon's Wood if Simon's Wood doesn't have an enemy objective that connects to it. So you're typically pretty well off with the middle of the map. Province, Figari, Figari and Province have a lot of connections that like go across the lake, Chotain, coastal base Chotain is always connected to like Andres Beacon, which is enemy owned, or like Laruns or Chotain from there. You want to spawn in at a frontline objective, so that way you can sit at a base. If the enemy attacks, you can be useful. You can watch the map and kind of see how things are going and what's happening. And you'll get the defense bonus for being on a frontline base. So that way, maybe if you want to play with the sniper rifle, inevitably after sitting on an objective for like 15, 20 minutes, you can pick that. Or you can pick an M16 with a scope, for instance. High recommendation. Right. This game, the recoil, your stance management, am I crouched, am I prone, your movement speed, it's all very approachable and anyone can do it. You don't need 3,000 hours on the game to do any of that stuff. Someone with 5 minutes in the game could outshoot me, and I have almost 700. What matters the most in this game is positioning, like where you're sitting in relation to an objective or where you're sitting in relation to a road, and just map knowledge. Like, where are people kind of going to come from, right? Hornbeam Valley, uh, Tyrone's to the north of it. There's a short little dirt road that connects the two. If you're sitting on Hornbeam and you're taking the objective, you know, or you end up knowing that that walk from Tyrone for the enemy to get to you is very short. Very fucking short. And they'll always come in more or less from the northwest side. They'll hook with the tree line that they'll take to get to you. It's very rare that you have people that go across the road in between Tyrone and Hornbeam to attack you from the east, because that's like a secondary mode of thinking that a lot of people don't do. And then that also informs you, because that's not common, if you start getting attacked from the east on Hornbeam, there's some people that are attacking you that know what they're doing, which means that you have to be a little bit more conservative when you come up on groupings of bushes, because people might not be in places that you expect. Maybe they're going to be, they've got enough knowledge in the game to know to play on expectations like that. Maybe they're going to play with better weapons or use the GL kit on Hornbeam is really effective because the base is both on the side of a hill and in a bowl. So there's few opportunities to not get a good GL shot, especially from distance. But you learn all that stuff just with time in the game. And starting with like the big things, which is like map movement and what's happening, what your team is capable of, what objectives you're losing. That's like the easy bit, because, and arguably the most important bit, because then you can start to recognize where you are actually needed on the map. And then you'll start getting good experiences. It fucking sucks when you're new to the game. You barely understand what the map symbols mean, right? You spawn on Morton Valley, and then you go an hour and a half, and the enemy never pushes you. Well, it's because Morton Valley's a fucking, like, insignificant, off to the side base. Yeah, it connects to Fagari, and it connects to Cav Hill, and most of the time when people go to attack you on Coastal Base Morton, they'll take Morton Valley and then Old Wood, but, like, if you knew a little bit of the map meta, then you would just see, oh, hey, Province is available as a spawn, and the enemy controls Mononac. Let's fucking spawn in there. That sounds like a good time, right? So that's what my suggestion would be for that. And then the second point that I have, or the second tip that I have, is it's really important with this game in particular, because there's a lot of stuff that'll burn you out and make you annoyed, especially if you're playing as a solo. Really important to maximize the amount of fun that you're having while getting better, right? You don't have to be super sweaty if you're playing in your living room on a TV that's 15 feet away from you and you can barely see anything that walks in front of you, which I would argue probably a lot of people do. How are you managing your time, right? If you have an hour and a half to play, don't even bother spawning on those smaller objectives. Only spawn on Province. Only spawn on, the runs or Coastal Base Shotan. Only spawn on Coastal Base Born. Don't, if you're new at the game and you're not all that great, you don't have a whole lot of map knowledge, don't hop in someone's car to go attack an objective. Don't do it. Just try to set yourself up in positions where you're on popular objectives, where the enemy has to come to you, right? Because then you're going to be more efficient, you're going to kill more people, you're going to feel better. Most of the time when you hop in someone else's car, they have the same amount of playtime in the game as you do, so they're just going to bomb it into the objective and get blown up to begin with, or they'll crash into something, and you'll die on the way there. And then that was a fucking waste of 15 minutes. Or worse, you'll get to the objective, and your team will take it, like, before you can even get the experience bonus. Because it doesn't flash on the map when you're taking an objective. It only flashes on the map when you're losing an objective. So find ways to ensure that you're having fun. If you're not having fun, try to find specific ways to avoid that, right? if I suck with the GL kit, why would I ever play with a GL kit? If I never hit any of my shots with a rocket launcher, why would I ever pick one up? Right? That's like later me problems. I'm just trying to have a good time, right? I just got off work, just trying to relax, just trying to unwind. Um, yeah, that's what I would say for that. That's probably the best way that I'm going to be able to put that. Let's move into the Reddit section. Some banger topics. First one, there's like 7 of these, by the way. Veteran, looking forward to playing. Have recently come across this game, but can't currently buy it at this moment. However, I look forward to the day that I can and join this amazing community. I feel like join this amazing community should be in quotes. As a veteran, I feel my skills would be hugely beneficial in the gameplay aspects. Howdy. Not that this video is a direct response to this by any means, but if you are listening to this and you are a veteran, I suppose I'll talk to 2 different crowds or address 2 different crowds. If you already have the game, understand that your experiences as a veteran probably don't actually mean shit in game. Learn to be humble and stop fucking pretending that, like, because you're a staff sergeant, that makes you better at the game. Fucking get a life, dude. Like, Jesus. And then to the other people, if you're a veteran and you haven't bought the game yet, same message, be humble, but also understand your experience in like land nav and stuff won't work against you in the game, but it really won't work for you in the ways that you would expect. Because being good at land nav won't keep that helicopter from blowing you up as soon as you spawn in. Also, the land nav for Everon, for instance, is obscenely easy. You're not going to do resectioning. You're not going to do... oh my god, what's wrong with me? See, I'm a bad soldier. It's all just going to be terrain association, right? You look at the map. Okay, well, I know I spawned in at Chotan. I can see on the map that there's a tree line to my north. There's a break in the tree line. There's a road. And then the tree line continues. And then there's a main road. And that's the ammo supply point that I want to go to. You pull out your compass. You see, okay, that's north. Okay, that's the tree line. You just fucking walk forward, right? Anyone can do that. Get over yourself. That being said, some of the community dynamics and ways that you can interact with people in milsim groups is pretty satisfying, right? Like, I would say that that's more of a leader's note as a veteran than, well, I'm in the military. No one cares if you're a fucking PFC. But a lot of milsim units will leverage that rather well. You'll get to scratch that itch. It's cheaper and less heartache than joining the National Guard just to get that feeling of brotherhood back. Don't make that fucking mistake. This is a topic that says, people, please speak in game. Was playing the official server the other day, or an official server the other day. This is kind of broken English, so I'm going to kind of make up for it. I and 3 other guys capturing the Soviet base experienced heavy fighting in the adjacent village. I see movement in a tent, but I can't tell if it's Soviet or American. Person's moving around. My brain said, well, it's a Soviet. So I called out, hey, dude, in the tent, are you American? Got no answer. The other 2 guys didn't talk either. Moved closer. The helmet of the guy inside looked Soviet as hell. So I shot once and got a negative score for team killing. I felt so shitty because that was my first team kill since I got the game a week ago. The guy seemed lost too. But yeah, people please speak in game. It's really hard to coordinate without communication. Yes, I know modded servers are generally better in terms of communication, but my Xbox likes to crash on modded servers. I chose this as a topic because I think that it's probably going to be, for your first like 20 hours as a new player, pretty consistent sentiment. People do not speak in game because you can't kick people from your squad You can't punish people that spam over the microphone short of an admin kicking someone in over the radio or in person and such. So people will oftentimes, especially if you're just hopping on with like some friends and you're playing on console, um, you'll just turn VoIP in-game talking off. You'll just turn that slider bar to 0. Um, so if you are experiencing people that aren't talking back to you, it might be literally because they don't have a microphone and there is no requirement to have a microphone in the game. That is not a tick box that you can choose as a server owner. You can't curate your squads to only have people with microphones. And yeah, you just there's you can ask people to talk in game. They're not going to do it. So more or less, you might as well just like find alternative ways around. I'm a masochist, so to an extent, if I have the opportunity or the option between shooting someone that I can't kind of tell if they're friendly or not, I just won't shoot. I'll let them get closer. And sometimes that means that I accidentally let my friends die because that was an enemy. And he killed 2 people in the process. But I would rather do that than team kill all the time. So sometimes just got to make the trade off. This subject I just chose. Oh, I didn't even see that there was actually text after that. Is a picture. It's a meme change. It's a picture of like a politician. You know what? Actually, I'm gonna be trashy real quick. Open image in new tab. It's this. Fly helicopters in Reforger. Everyone raises their hands. Capture objectives. Nobody raises their hands. It's just funny because it's so true. So people spend more time and allocate more energy into grinding for helicopters than capturing objectives on both teams, I would argue. I just liked that because it was inflammatory and true. This, I don't think it was intentional, but I think that this might be the most sophisticated or original question that I've seen on Reddit for Reforger. The topic says base building tips and tricks. Now, originally when I saw this, I thought that this was a post asking about like a mod like Wasteland or something where you can build a base. However, I immediately recognized that it was someone talking about how do you build out your objective. And I have some opinions for that. Of course I have opinions. How dare you? He says, what are your base building tips and tricks? Do you have specific layouts that function for support and defense? What do you rush or build first? How can others improve on base building or make it more enjoyable so others are inclined to help build up defenses? What would you like to see added to the game for base building or defense? I would personally like to see more emplacements like a TOW, AGL, or artillery. More options for defenses like large dirt mounds and such. Maybe trench options to dig them in fields or something. What about y'all? Now, we're going to break this down into little sections. First of all, what do you rush or build first? Let me just lay the groundwork for people that don't have a ton of time in game or haven't bought the game yet, okay? There is an aspect of the game that is true and you should know before you buy the game or before you really invest a bunch of time into it. You can't curate anything, you can't set restrictions on bases, and most of the people on your team don't give a fuck about what you want to build or how you want to design the base at a particular objective, I should say. So there's no point in going into anything with goals or hard set like, all right, there's only 200 build here. We need another 300 to place down a helicopter pad, or I really want to place down a medical tent so that way people can grab X, or I need to. There's no arsenal bunker here. It'd be nice if people could be able. First of all, this is gonna make me sound toxic. Don't even think about your team like that. Don't even think about your team like that. Your team does not exist like that on a public match of conflict. Do not waste your time. Do not burn your fucking. Do not spin your tires. doing it. If you want the base to look a particular way, you either need to do it right then and there or just accept that it's probably not going to happen. And if you place something down, people with no fucking prompt or warning, it's not against the rules on most servers, will just randomly dig down what you have fucking built. It bothered the hell out of me. I was on the runs for one match, and someone dug down the first aid tent module and the arsenal so that way they could gain supply to spawn a truck and drive away. Not even a heavy truck, just an ordinary light vehicle, just a Jeep. Not against the rules. Not against the rules on this server, on most servers. So, don't put that much energy into it. Secondly, this is a squad stance that I've had for a while that carried over to Reforger perfectly. What is the best defense? People with guns. What is not the best defense? Things that are not people with guns. Okay? Sandbags. Do not defend your base. Bunkers, towers, gun emplacements without people on them. Do not make your base more defensible. Because at the end of the day, I can build up Simon's Wood to look like a fantastic real-life fob in, like, Afghanistan. If no one spawns on Simon's Wood, then did it really matter? No. So don't even worry about it. Do not even worry about that. For the same topic, I'm just going to say it. It's going to make me really unpopular, but it's fucking true, and you just need to hear it. You need to know it. If you are not flying a helicopter or specifically trying to do armor, you do not need to do logistics runs on most conflict servers. Objectives have a passive supply gain. And it's a math equation that the server owner can change. But most objectives have a passive supply gain that's influenced by, like, how many bases are connected, how many structures are there, a bunch of stuff. You do not need to do logistics runs for infantry play, which is 99% of the game. If you would like to spawn in a very high ticket or high value vehicle, then yeah, you're probably going to need to do a logistics run to justify that. In doing that logistics run, do not be surprised if you unload all of that build and someone spawns whatever the fuck they want. Now you don't have enough supply on the objective to spawn that 50 cal Humvee or that helicopter. Because you can't keep people from doing any of that stuff. So why fucking do it? Why do it? You will only burn yourself out. For the people that have 300 hours in the game and all they do is logistics runs. If you are not explicitly supporting someone that you know, as in you're in a group with someone that is flying helicopters, if that logistics run isn't for that person, if you're on Regina, because there's a supply base right next to it, right? Mao is the stereotypical one on the north side. And you are adding another 5,000 build to the already 7,000 that exist on the objective because you've got a field of supply bunkers. You are supporting people that you A, do not know, and B, do not deserve your effort. People will spawn 7 helicopters in the span of 30 minutes and fly them into the fucking sides of hills, or they won't kill a single thing with that attack helicopter. You are only enabling that person, right? They do not actually value you. I'd be willing to bet, right? These people don't know you. These people do not oftentimes play consistently enough to go, oh my fucking god, Josh is on. That means that I can for sure get my practice with helicopters in because I know he's going to do logistics. They do not care. Don't fucking do it. You're wasting your time. And then if you then try to come into a conversation with me about how you have 7,000 hours in the game, I know you're full of shit because I can tell if we play 5 minutes with each other that you can't tell me what any of the buildings look like in Chotain. You can't tell me how to fucking like the best way to attack this objective. You can't tell me any like meta information on the map. Hey guys, did you know that the game logs your hours the same if you're on the main menu as if you're in a match? And also, the content of those hours could be anything. Don't do it. It's a giant waste of time. Giant. You are better off from a logistics perspective. I would argue that it is another form of logistics, sitting on a base and doing defense. Because you're actively, even if you're not shooting people, even if you're AFK in a bush, you're adding to that math equation of equal numbers plus 1. So now the Russians that walked in with 4 people, if you're the 5th guy, they just can't do anything. And you're worthwhile. There's a point. So, anyways, to specifically answer what this post is asking, though, do you have specific layouts that function for support or defense? Camo nets, baby. Camo nets are life. Especially if you're solo or duo defending an objective, camo nets will make or break that defense. And it's fantastic for offense, too. It's effectively just an advanced way of thinking about camo nets, right? Like Cav Hill is a great example. Entredur is on the side of a hill. Hornbeam has some specific places. Pinewood. Objectives tend to be either on features on the map, like on hills, on the side of hills, and in specific clearings. Hornbeam Valley is an important valley because it's like the feature-wise on the map. You've got that elbow bay right there in between Kermoven and Andre's Beacon, and then it leads all the way up to Entredur and Montanak. So like, I don't know, from a Milsim perspective, or for like a just looking at the map as a feature, it's got the crossroads right there where the ammo supply's right there, and whatever. Anyways. Or they're in the middle of open fields and they're fucking worthless. Camo nets break up the vast openness that is a large open field like Simon's Wood. Camo nets stop projectiles. They stop rockets, they stop GLs, and they stop grenades. You can shoot through them, and the shrapnel from explosions will go through them, but fantastic. Lots of use. You can effectively make your own tree line there. Highly recommend, kind of giving away the game. No one watches these videos anyways. Standing on camo nets, like my guy in the background here. Fantastic. You know what's even better? Putting a camo net in a tree line, because when you stand on top of it, you are at leaf height. So no one around you, unless they're right underneath you, can see you. It's great. It's fantastic. You gotta play around with it a little bit so that way you can place them in tree lines, but boy, no. Fucking fantastic. So I would say, what do you want to do, right? If I'm fighting on Cav Hill and there's no arsenal bunker, or I just took Cav Hill because it's the beginning of the match, and I have decided, important, I have decided that I'm going to stay there for the next like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I would like to be able to spawn there, so I'm going to build a radio tower. The radio tower enables your passive income of supply. And then I want to build an arsenal bunker, because that 500 supply cap that comes with the command tent honestly fills up pretty quick. Building an arsenal bunker at the least increases that capacity to 1,500, and it'll fill up to 15. And then that gives you an opportunity to grab additional weapons and ammo and stuff like that. Then if I'm doing defense, I'll put down some camo nets in some areas, so that way I can eliminate the height advantage in the other direction of people walking in from the objective, because it's at the very top of a hill. So if you're watching the east side, ordinarily you can't really see the north side or the south side, but if you're staying on top of a camo net, all of a sudden you can see a larger swath of area and it's harder to attack the objective. Um, the closer that you put camo nets and modules to the command tent on the base, um, you're making it easier for you to defend, and you're making it harder to retake, right? Arguably, I would say, depending on how many people you're playing with and what your goals are, I suppose, um, you should try to put all of the modules and camo nets for an objective on the outskirts, because the offense radius for an objective is really just centered around the, I mean, both radiuses are centered around the camo net, but it's really close to the camo net. If you get rid of all the cover and structures that people would be sitting in, you make it really fucking easy to just retake. That would be my recommendation for that. How can others improve on base building or make it more enjoyable? It'd be cool to be able to place camo nets. I consistently find that as like a wish for nighttime. I would just like to be able to mark like where concertina wire is in a low light sort of deal, and where like arsenal bunkers are, without needing to have flares or floodlights. Also, the base game floodlights are fucking garbage. So terrible. Next thing, where are we at for time? Jesus, 2 hours and 30 minutes. I promise I don't do this on purpose. Arma Scrub requires assistance. Looking for someone who's experienced who can run alongside me for a couple of evenings, show me the ropes. 31, male, playing on PC, UK time zones. I've dabbled, but would like a squad mate who has the time to impart some wisdom. Thanks. Admin, if this is the wrong place, I apologize. My only response to this is, which is funny, because I'm going to post this to Reddit, right? It's important to shit talk Reddit and make posts on Reddit. Do not ask for friends or people to play with outside of game. Keep that for in-game, right? When you ask just people on the internet, you have no idea how old they are, the people that are responding. You don't know if they even own the game, if they're fucking sketchy, if they're a cheater. Maybe they only want to play on specific fucking servers. You know how you find good quality people that play on servers that are ping friendly to you? You play on ping friendly servers that have, servers that have active admins, and then you get to like curate from seeing people who you interact with, right? If I spawn in on an objective and I'm new to the game and I see 3 people off in a corner that are screaming at each other and team killing each other, and I see one guy off to the side that looks like he's doing defense, he's standing on top of like a living quarters, looking around here and there, probably a good opportunity to go talk to that guy, right? But highly recommend. Just do that in game, right? Just go up to people in voice and say, hey man, you have a microphone. I'm new to the game. I was wondering if you could give me some pointers. Will people give you just the most fucking brainless, low IQ, like very easily assumed pointers? Hey, left click is to shoot your weapon. Absolutely. But you might luck out on someone that actually knows like some good game knowledge and stuff. I haven't met anyone like that, but could happen. This post is just called Electric Grid. With the roadmap drawing to an end, or at least closer to the end, I really wonder why such a lackluster feature is being held off until the end. Sorry, I had to swallow my own spit. I think that this guy posted this initially thinking that the electrical system was just like lights for towns and stuff. However, I agree with it to a large extent. I think that the electrical grid is really overhyped. It'll be fantastic for like milsim missions and small population servers. For 128 player servers, I really, in a world where the Soviets can win in 40 minutes on average if they really fucking wanted to. And I say that because oftentimes you'll find that the Soviets are accidentally winning and they will back off of an objective so that way they can extend the match longer. The electrical grid taking out the power to a town doesn't matter. You could just pop a flare over an objective and then take it. Oh, I gotta kill the power to Montanak. Oh yeah, that's right. The objective isn't in the town. It's the farm. Oh, I really need to kill the power to that barn. Or Chotan, right? Objectives on the edge of town. So, I mean, maybe that'll kind of change, but... this post is called... This is the last one, by the way. How to not be an idiot. When spawning, how can I not be an idiot? Like, should I join an existing squad, create a new one? I mostly run supplies from main to fob, just because I don't know how to approach it. Yeah, there's no purpose to the squads. Even in experimental, when they have like these themes for the squads, it's not like that's going to be able to keep you from like taking a vehicle or something. Like, it's not the difference between hopping in a large supply truck or a jeep. So what squad you're in, whether you make one, doesn't matter. I also didn't mention it before. Something that I should have mentioned in the new players section: drop your fucking radio. No one says a goddamn thing that actually matters in team chat or in platoon chat over the radio. No one in your squad, first of all, is going to talk to you or say anything meaningful. Definitely no one on your team is going to say anything meaningful or important. Most of the time, you're just going to see people make comments on things that you could already see on the map. Oh, the enemy's taking Coastal Base Morton. Yeah, it's flashing on the map. I could tell. Hey, there's enemies on Province. Yeah, it's an enemy objective. There's going to be enemies there. And then everything else is just people screaming at each other. So just fucking drop your radio immediately. And for some reason, I thought I had more comments on that, but I'm just going to kind of lean into not remembering and cut myself off early. Jesus Christ, 2 hours and 30-something minutes. If you sat through this whole thing, you're a fucking trooper. That's crazy. Thank you, I suppose. Leave a comment so that way I can tell if there's an actual appetite for any of this goddamn content. Because I don't know. I don't actually know. The view count doesn't represent like people that have watched the video to completion, you know? So I don't know if like 10 unique people have watched the video for like the first 5 minutes and then they clicked off or what. So either way, thank you. Should be getting more into the swing of doing this twice a week. So yes. Glory to the Camo net.